I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Nate.
And we're the Byrons.
Been together for over a decade.
Have 2 kids.
2 businesses.
Our strategy
for your best life
is to just go with it. Guess who's back again. We are back. Tell a friend.
Yeah.
Back at it again.
Who dis? It is the year 2024.
24.
Welcome
to season 2, friends.
Taking us a good bit to get here, but we are here.
We are. We loved season 1. Needed a break.
Year. It's been a long year.
For season 2, and we're back.
So a few years ago, I experienced really a position in my life that I didn't really understand and kind of how to get out of. I had kind of reached a valley that was extremely muddy and nitty gritty and nasty, and I had kind of reached this point to where my talent and any of the work, the habits, anything that I'd done in my life, I reached this point to where none of that was really good enough anymore, and I couldn't get past my emotions. I felt like there was something holding me back from the man that I wanted to be, the husband I wanted to be. I mean, there were definitely some challenges with my anger. There were some challenges with my dreams and what I wanted. I couldn't figure out a way to communicate with you to the best of my ability to get you to do what I wanted you to do. Lo and behold, I didn't realize until years later that I was creating this environment and this atmosphere that was not conducive to your growth or mine. But at the time, I just remember I was emotional. I mean, I was just really high highs and really low lows. Yes, of like when things were super good, they were good, and when they weren't, they weren't. And I remember us, talking one day when I was in the shower, and I was like, explaining my sales job, this business that I'm building as an entrepreneur. I mean, there's just so many hot and cold emotions of, trying to get people to like you, trying to get people to do business with you, trying to become a better version of yourself, seeing other people succeed when you weren't, seeing other people in phases of their lives when it looks like they're happy, but I'm not happy with who I am and where I'm going. I wasn't happy in our marriage. I was just completely unhappy. And I felt like there was this pull between who I was, who I wanted to be, and then there was just these excess emotions here, like this baggage that I just didn't know what to do with, right? And so I'm in the shower, I'm at this point, probably 30 minutes in, and the hot water is going, cold. And I think you were doing your hair or something. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. What do I need to do? I don't know what to do. And, I think this was probably the 10th time I had put shampoo in my hair. And I remember opening up my eyes and seeing you turn around and look at me and just say, I think you need to go to counseling. And at that point, I was like, "Oh."
She said that. She said that.
You said that. Yeah. You said that.
You said that.
You said that. And then I just remember thinking, you know what? Yeah, maybe it's time. I think I've reached the point to where I don't know what to do. I have outkicked my coverage. I am out of wisdom. I am out of knowledge. I'm out of how in the world do I get past this point. And so you mentioned counseling.
I did. And anytime this story gets brought up, everyone is shocked that Nate did not get mad at me. They're like, he said, she said what to you? And he's like, she told me I should get counseling. And everybody's like, and then what did you say? It's such should be a point of tension, but
it's the worst thing you can do in a fight is be like, well, you know what?
You're broken.
You got problems.
I'm perfect.
You need to go see a counselor.
And that was not my heart, but we had built that rapport with one another enough to be like, listen, I don't know how to help you anymore. As a, Jesus-seeking wife, I guess you can say, I can only say so many prayers of like, Lord, show him direction. Lord, show him what he's supposed to see. Lord, do all of these things. And there's only I know like this much information about anything. I don't know a lot about much. So my knowledge of like, okay, how do I help him with this? Like, School of Hard Knocks over here is just like, I don't know. Well, I don't know. It's going to be fine though. Like, that's my motto for everything is, I don't know, but it'll be fine. There's only so much of that you can take and apply into your life. So thankfully, he did not take offense because I did not mean it offensively.
It's true though. A lot of people are like, your wife told you needed counseling. Are you sure she said that to you? She actually, looked you in the windows of your soul.
Looked into the windows of her soul and said, you need counseling.
You need counseling. But it wasn't uncommon for you to mention that, or it wasn't uncommon for you to say, I think you need this, because you've got a history in counseling too.
I do. For those of you that don't know me on a personal level, my dad passed away when I was 16 years old, and he was sick when I was 15, had lung cancer for 14 months before he, met Jesus. And I did not deal, I was 16 years old, okay? I was 16 years old. My brother was in college. I was at home with my mom. We did a lot of just surviving. We were not thriving. We were just surviving in that season. And I stayed in that season for a very long time. There was a year and a half where I did not shed a single tear. Like after the funeral and all of that, I was just like, nice. I'm going to get through this, and then I will come up for air when I feel like it's time. And when you do that, the coming up for air will hit you in the face when you don't expect it. And
shoving that shit down.
Listen, I didn't graduate college, but I have a PhD in shoving it down, okay? PhD in just keep shoving it, it'll be fine. Until I was in college, my sophomore year. I could tell I was going through some stuff. I could feel that like the way I was responding to things was not how I would normally respond to things. I, was kind of going through some stuff with like a group of friends, and that was weird. So I was just like, all right, fine, I'll just shove that down too. Enter my junior year of college, and I hit probably the lowest point that I had hit up until then. And to give you some backstory on that, my mom had moved to the town that I was living in. And so that was amazing. I finally had family back around. And it was also the same time my mom started dating again, when my dad passed away, he was 45. So my mom was 45. Very young widow. No one should be a widow that young. So we all knew my mom would start dating again. Well, it's different when you say she will until like, I have to come to terms with the fact that like she's going to date
with another man.
While I am dating. You should never, you should never be in the same stage of life as your parents, okay? That is weird, and that still kind of trips me out sometimes. So that was a lot, and it started to grief started to show its head in ways that I was not prepared for. So I stopped going to classes. I stopped going to my college classes. I stopped pretty much doing anything that I had to do. And I stopped doing a lot of things that I wanted to do. I would put on a happy face when I needed to. And a lot of people didn't know. And there's like a lot of people didn't know with Nate that like he was going through all these things. And then finally, Nate and I were very seriously dating at this point. And
I had never dealt with anyone. I had never seen grief. I mean, I had great-grandparents who lived to be almost 100 pass away. So, of course, this type of grief and depression that you were going through was just...
It's hard to explain.
Unlike anything. I mean, and I was like, well, hey, you could get up and we could go to eat and we could go have fun, and trying to come up with, all these solutions as I thought, fix it Felix over here.
Fix it Felix. Woo, woo. But that's also like... My mom, precious, as sweet as she is, tried to get us in counseling as a family, and I was not ready for that. It was...
Because I mean, counseling is a taboo word.
It
It
is. But also,
the church,
yeah.
not in the church. It doesn't matter.
It's like if you hear someone's in counseling, there's like, oh, well, like I'm not broken or anything, but like blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But I wasn't ready. And finally, I think you brought it. I don't know who brought it up to me of like.
I come to think of it, I could have probably been like.
It might have been, yeah.
You need counseling, Miss.
But it was one of those things, no one around me knew what I was going through. Even my brother, who also lost a dad, he didn't see him die like I did. And even my mom lost her husband, but I lost my dad. And those are two different, neither one of us can understand the other's grief, really. And so the college we went to has a free counseling center. And I went, and I kind of sat down, and the first thing I asked the guy was if he knew my brother, because my brother worked for the school. My parents were very well known around the campus. And I specifically wanted to be like a Jane Doe. Okay, I did not want a soul to know. I didn't want this guy to even know how to pronounce my last name, because it was a very well-known last name. And I was like, do you happen to know, Matthew Kite? And he goes, no, I don't know who he is. And I was like, perfect. What do you want to know about
Sign
me?
me up, baby.
I was like, and even when I told my mom, she said, I think it's good that you go to somebody that doesn't know me, doesn't know your dad. My dad was a very well-known Church of God pastor and was for like 20 years. And
it's got no history.
Yeah.
No card in the race.
No horse in the race, no nothing. So I kind of like shared with him. I was like, listen, this is where I'm at. This is what I am going through. I don't even know what to call it. I feel like it's depression, but like my dad dealt with depression, but again, he's not here for me to talk about this with. So like, I don't know if that's what this is, but I think I want to talk to somebody. To talk to him a couple times. Nate ended up going with me because.
Well, I thought I just shoved my way up in there, because I even through counseling, I could see that you were making progress, but not the progress that I wanted you to make. Not the snap out of it. Come on, let's go. Like, I'm
not a shake me until I figure it out type person.
I want you to be the person that essentially I thought you were, and so I asked. I mean, I asked so many days after you would go, and it would take you, the hard part about counseling is it would take you some time in order to get out of the funk that you felt like digging up all that stuff. And the longer you go, of course, the funkier it gets, the longer that,
And I also really internally process things. And so digging up all the gunk, plus me trying to figure out, okay, how do I even feel about this? He'd be like, okay, so what'd you talk about? And I'm like, I don't know.
So I was like, well, let me get up in there and figure out what I can do to help you in this.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think the heart of I did want you to get better. I did want you to become a better person. Like, I wanted that for you. I wanted you to move past this as much as you can by losing a parent. But I didn't know how to help you either, of like, okay, we are pretty serious, so this is probably going to transition into a longer term relationship, aka marriage at this point, almost 10 years. What?
And I'll be honest, I was terrified, because I realized, like, I have said for 12 years, 13 years we've been together, I come with a lot of baggage, okay? Like, everyone that comes into marriage brings baggage. But like, when you've lost a parent, and like me and my mom are like trauma bonded, me and my brother are trauma bonded, like there's a lot there. And so I was scared. I was like, he's going to see all of this and be like, oh crap, like she needs counseling really bad. So he went with me.
I went, and my eyes were open and my jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
Because I grew up, my parents had me at 18 and 20, and I grew up in a very survival type mode where it was a very chaotic time period.
You were also not thriving, you were surviving.
And well, of course, they were both young. They were fresh out of high school, no jobs, both living with family, and like now they've got a kid on the way and all these big decisions to make. And so, there were things that, I dealt with at the time that, I didn't even know that I had dealt with. So of course, 5-10 minutes in, I'm asking questions, we're talking, and I'm thinking I'm just going to listen in and be like, I'm going to take some notes on, on what he's saying about you. And he hones in directly on me, and it was just like, Nate, you're probably dealing with some of these things because you've had to be a husband your entire life. And so, he basically was telling me to, move off, and stop trying to fix her and get me to realize that there was some fixing of my own I needed to do before I could help you. And that was like, it was easy for me to slip into this position to where he basically said, you've been a husband your entire life. And so now what she's looking for, you can slide into that husband and fatherly type role because you've always lived that, but that's not what she necessarily needs right now. So your relationship automatically goes to like this father-daughter type thing. And I was like, well, that's gross. I don't want to be a father. Like, not to my girlfriend, like there's, and so of course my eyes were open to like, man, this guy read me my lunch. But it wasn't until, that was probably what, 2013? Mm-hmm. So really it wasn't until maybe 2020-ish time frame to where, Jackie Brewster, who we'll talk about here in just a little bit, was someone that was counseling a few other people, a few other men that I admired and I'd gotten to know with. And so Jackie was helping them along. And, a friend of mine listened to me, open up and tell some things that I was dealing through, especially with my emotions, because as men, we just don't understand how to process our emotions healthily. And so went to see her, and I remember the very first phone call. I was like, Jackie, I don't know if you can help me. I don't know if I'm too far gone, but I feel it. On one hand, I'm like, man, just have fun. Everything's going to be okay. Life's going to be all right, brother. You're going to make it, man. It's going to be okay. And then the other hand's like, no, I got to do everything perfectly. I got to be great. I got to be great whatever I do. I got to kick all that bad stuff that everybody told me I was a piece of junk and that I'd never amount to anything and that I had the talent, but I would never get there. And all these different, I got to show all them up. And then on the other hand, it was just like, oh, God, I'm just terrible. And I just have all these emotions. And so I was like this, now no, it's like the Enneagram tri-type is what I was dealing with, but I said, Jackie, I feel like I'm schizophrenic. I feel like I have multiple personality disorder. Like I am just so emotional. And she was like, well, I'm not a licensed quote unquote government, paid by the government, paid by, the state institutions that follow a certain route. She was like, it's mine is based off the Enneagram and the Bible. And I think there's some things that, you could potentially learn, if you want me. And so it was kind of this, like, I think I can help you, Nate. And I was like, I don't know if you can help me, Jackie. And she was like, I think I can help you, Nate.
I can help you.
And so I was like, fine. Why don't we do, a session and, let's figure it out. And so that is what truthfully changed the trajectory of my life. From that moment on was a divine appointment. It was unlike anything I have ever experienced. And it wasn't a good first session because Jackie got to work essentially, trying to get me to see, that the younger version of yourself has been driving.
I will never forget
driving
you
the bus
home.
of your life. And so it's time for you to step back in and acknowledge the things that happened to you in childhood. But that small version of you that was hurt and that was rejected and that had pain and all these different things, that's not the guy, that's not the man that's going to lead you in the direction that you want to go.
Not driving the bus anymore.
I was like, all right, tell me more. So then, as I started to go,
That was January 2021, I think.
Okay, is that what it was?
I'm trying to do the calendar.
I did start to feel better. We had some really good conversations. We had some really bad conversations. We had conversations where, I was crying like a baby. I was at, the conversations where I was cussing. But, she started to help me kind of make sense of everything that I was dealing with and where it stemmed from. And it's okay what you're going through. And it's normal what you're going through. And it's okay. You don't have to be that same version. You don't have to let, those pain, those rejections and all those things that you're holding and harboring, you don't have to let those carry on. Like that's, you can say goodbye to those things. You can put it up. And so I started to see a lot of growth. Slow growth over time, but month, 2 month, 3, 6 months. I felt like I was changing, although I was still going through everything in here, and so it was just really loud, but I feel like you saw a different side of me.
I definitely did, because things that normally would have set you off of it would kind of trigger some anger or
short fuse. Yeah.
Yes, because you're not an angry person, but your fuse.
When I got so much going on up here, the margin, the fuse is just. Yeah.
Now we know what to look for and recognize and plan accordingly, but also at that point, it was I could just tell, like, you processed things quicker. You were not as angry. You gave me a lot more grace, which we had a newborn at that point in our lives. And so, like, grace was needed because literally had another child to take care of and ended up getting pregnant again, which...
Hello.
But it was like you were becoming different, but in a way that was so attractive to me that it made me want to
Come on now.
get back. Yeah, come on with your come ons.
Ooh.
It was making me want to be like, okay, well, like, I before would have been like, no, this is him. Now I'm like, okay, well, maybe, like, if he asked me to go, I wouldn't say no. Are you asking me to go to Applebee's with you?
Are you asking me to go to Applebee's with you?
But, I mean, that's the truth.
And at that point, thankfully, I had probably spent enough time with Jackie going, this wife that I got married to, you wouldn't believe all the baggage she's got. We need to deal with this right then and here. Jackie, what are we going to do about this? And there was one day when I think it was still, I was mainly focusing on myself, hoping that would spill over into my relationship. But of course, like, before you can change your relationship, you got to change yourself. Point blank, you can't move the needle in any area of your life until you start moving yourself in a better area. Nothing else is going to follow suit for that. Because then you're going to have this, wobbly, off balance, like this uneven circle where it's just got a bunch of divots in it that's, not the original purpose. So I started seeing growth, and then of course Jackie at that point was like, well, I tell you what, it sounds like, your wife may need to share her side of the story, because good Lord, you've been talking about her for months. So would you think she'd be open to, coming in and talking with us together? And of course, all this is over Zoom. Jackie lives in another, different place from us. And so I was like, I think she would be. And I think, I don't necessarily remember that conversation as much, but I think it was, Jackie wants to see you, and I think, it's probably time. And so, of course, from your perspective, yeah, I think it sounds good.
Well, and it was like, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
Like, why not give it a try?
Yep. Yeah. And it was, I won't lie to you, it was extremely difficult. And there are days and weeks where, we are still going to
I was going to say, we are actively, let me preface, we are
and,
actively in counseling.
unless the good Lord calls Jackie into another industry, because I think she's going to go up to heaven in that fiery chariot.
Oh, he coming to get her on a golden crusted.
Unless she moves to a different industry. I mean, I want her to coach me in our marriage and our emotions and everything that we talk about. I want this to be something that we implement for life. Mm-hmm. I mean, I at this point in my life, I am aware that you will never stop growing to be the better version of yourself until the day you leave this earth. Like you are constantly learning, constantly evolving, constantly growing as individuals and as married couples. Should. You're constantly evolving. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very hard. And I just remember this talking with someone who asked about my experience, with counseling, coaching. I was like, look, it is extremely difficult. It's a lot harder. And there were so many times where I was like, I don't know that I could do this anymore. This season of the Just Go With It podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Creative Revolver. I met Ryan and his team at an event here in Chattanooga a little over a year ago, and we hit it off about his story, about building his business, moving here from another city, got to meet his wife. His family seems like just a lot of fun. He helped us out with our intro video, so if you like that, if you need video photography for any type of architectural interiors, real estate, podcasts, they specialize in video and photography, of course. Please give Ryan and the team at Creative Revolver a phone call if you have any needs that they specialize in. Thanks again, Ryan, Creative Revolver, for helping us out. We're just digging up so much stuff in the midst of all like the normal, regular, like fatherly, relationship duties that I'm trying to build a business, I'm trying to build a brand, I'm trying to do all these things. And so combing back through it was like, I don't need this right now. And I think that's where so many people do quit. So many people think, I don't have the time for this right now. they don't continue on, and then it comes back tenfold. I feel like, when
it makes it where when
you start to
choice.
regress, and then something happens to your health or in your life, and it's like bam, you hit with a roadblock, and it's like I've got no choice but then to go back. And the longer you go, I feel like the more stronger those habits are built. And you can't teach an old dog new tricks, essentially, because they're just so old and they've done the same things over and over again for their entire life, and it's just not true.
And I heard someone once say this. They were talking about it in terms of divorce. They were like, pick your hard. Both is hard. Working through your issues and your crap and your, choosing to work on things is hard. But also hard is splitting holidays, coming out with custody.
Yeah.
Like, they're both hard.
Yeah.
You just have to pick which hard you're willing to take. Yeah. And it's, having the hard conversations and digging through trauma for me of like, going back 15 years, like trauma of why the question, what's the plan, makes me freak out. Like, coming up with those kind of conversations is hard.
Yep.
But also just freezing when conversations like that come up is just as hard.
Yeah.
So it's picking, okay, which hard is worth it? And for both of us, together and individually, it's been, all right, grab a shovel. Let's just start. Keep on digging, boy. And that's kind of where we've gotten to today, is we've dug and dug and dug and dug and dug.
And I'm so happy I didn't quit. I'm so happy that I stuck it out. I did hard things. Because one, I proved that like I can do hard stuff, and the more you do that, the more you respect yourself. The more you respect yourself, the farther you'll go. And I feel like that's where some people don't realize, like, the inward, like, if you respect you, there's nothing you can't accomplish. If you believe in you, there's nothing you can't accomplish. I just finished reading Jason Derulo's book, and that was
Jason Derulo.
JR, which I found out is his producer. Anyway, but I didn't quit. I kept going. I proved that I could do hard stuff. And my advice is just get coaching. I mean, really just be counseled. Like, just try it, right? I mean, you got nothing to lose?
Just do it. You literally, even we were talking to someone about this the other day. The way our counselor does it is you buy 6 sessions. Okay. Do 6 sessions, and then if you get to the end and you're like, I wish I hadn't have done that. You're lying to yourself.
Said no one ever.
Yeah, said absolutely no one ever. But okay, so you tried 6 times. You tried for 6 sessions and it didn't work.
Listen, if you're hanging with us, you're going to counseling.
Yeah.
The couples that are around us, anytime it's like a problem comes up or like an issue comes up, or it's like, I would really love to do this with my husband or have this type of relationship. That's always, it's like, hey, not saying you need it, but you need it.
You won't regret it is kind of my, what do you have to lose? I mean,
we're not going to name them by name, but most of the couples that are around us are now going in some level of
not a single person around us has said, I really wish we hadn't have done that. No, not a one.
Nope.
Not a single one.
It was interesting. I was looking at some of these statistics online because I'm a math guy, right? But my hope is that you think it's not taboo. I mean, to go to get
it's not
coached,
a dirty word.
To counseled,
counseling and therapy, not a dirty word.
I mean, it is more of a life coach per se. It is more of a furthering your life coach, right, than it is anything else.
Like a sounding board. Too.
But I don't know who these guys are, these marriage centers, but Google says all, so you can take it or leave it. But 49% of married couples attend counseling, which is a lot more than I thought. I thought that would have been in the teen, right? The highest percentage of those, 57% of married couples that are in counseling are anywhere between 3 and 5 years.
Which makes total sense. That's when the honeymoon phase wears off, and you're like, okay.
I mean, that is a lot. It impresses me
that they're not waiting in,
but
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. That they're not.
But waiting until they're 15 years down the road and crap, we should have started this 10
Out
years
of the
ago.
people that are not in counseling, 52% of those married couples said they're open to it. So your husband, your wife might be open to going to counseling, and maybe they're afraid to bring it up because you don't want to just point blank say, hey, you need counseling, and maybe
Unless you're Tiffany.
maybe that's what you need to do. I don't know.
Unless you're me.
I don't know. But and why this is so important to me, to you, and to us is, of course, like, the divorce word never really got brought up, but I do know there was one point in time when I was thinking, and I know we had talked of like, I don't know how we recover from this. And it was in that 3 to 5 year mark where I was like, I don't know how to.
Which we
I don't know
touched
how
on
to
that
talk to
conversation
you.
in season 1.
I don't know how to convey my points. I don't know how to connect with you on a level that moves us in the right direction and moves us past the baggage I feel like we're carrying, we're dealing with. And so, it's not uncommon to think that our road could have ended in divorce had we have not done something about this, because at 5 years is when the divorce rate starts to get super high in that time, and then apparently after 5 years, each year it starts to increase past that. So the percentage of you getting a divorce is more and more and more and more and more.
That's crazy.
It's nuts.